Kia ora, greetings. My name is Brian Flaherty. I'm your host for the session this afternoon, a webinar on Globus data transfer. This is the second webinar we've given on Globus and data transfer. So I'm kind of assuming that you may know a little bit about Globus already, but I'll do a quick catch up. So let me just share my screen to start with. Okay, what we're covering today. So we'll give a demo for 20 minutes and a Q&A at the end. So we're looking at a 30-minute session. Standard webinar things, keep your audio muted unless you want to ask a question. If you've got a quick question, fire away while I'm talking. Otherwise, a longer one, we can talk about it at the end in the 10 minutes at the end. And the webinar video and the slides will be available afterwards for referring back to. What we're going to cover today is, as I said, a quick overview of Globus, how to share data with individuals, creating a group to share data with a group, setting up a personal endpoint. Those are the key things I want to talk about today. So first of all, a service overview in case you're not so familiar with Globus. Globus is an alliance that came out of the University of Chicago and Argonne Lab, looking at the fundamental technologies around grid computing infrastructure, particularly around transferring data. So it is a global organization. They have 12,000 active endpoints, or there are about 1,000 connected institutions, and they transfer about 500 terabytes of data a day as part of that service globally. How does Globus work? Well, your data is transferred directly between the source and the destination systems. It doesn't go via Globus, it travels directly, but what Globus does is tunes the performance parameters of that transfer and looks after security and monitors progress and validates the correctness of the transferred files. So it kind of does the housework for you. That transfer takes place between endpoints. Endpoints are really just Globus software installed either on a personal server or on a personal PC or on a server. In New Zealand, we have 4 organisational endpoints on our national platform. Our NeSI one down at Wellington. Otago have 1, University of Auckland, and Ag Research. We're also in conversation with another couple of organisations about setting up their own endpoints as well at this point. What do you need to use Globus on a NeSI platform to transfer things to or from NeSI? You need a Globus account, you need an active NeSI account, and a NeSI project. So you have access to HPC, either Maui or Mahuika, and access to a Globus endpoint where you're going to transfer the files to. That may be your institutional endpoint or personal endpoint. One last thing to note before we go in and do a demo, that we've set up Globus on the NeSI platform so that it defaults when you access Globus on NeSI, it defaults to your home directory. But the best place to transfer files to and from is your no backups directory. At this point, your project directory is not visible to Globus. So if you've got data in your projects, you should move it through into your no backup directory in order for transferring it. We're considering about making the projects directory read-only so that you can transfer things out of it. So watch that space. But at the moment, you need to have your data in no backup before you can transfer. Some useful links of documentation around what I'm talking about today. NeSI support pages around data transfer. Globus have some of their own documentation around sharing files, managing groups, setting up a personal Connect server, configuring firewalls, and some configuration around your personal endpoint. So where do we start? If you haven't done it before, the place to start is with the Globus web app. and we have a customized version of that web app at this URL here, transfer.nesi.org.nz. Let me just change my share and jump over to the web page.
Brian, I'm getting you fading a lot. I don't know if other people are having that problem.
Oh, okay. Anyone else having trouble with hearing me?
Yes, same thing. At the beginning, when you start speaking, it's sort of missing the first few words.
Missing the first few words.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe I'll just make sure my headphone's close to my mouth, and I'm talking into the headphone. Maybe, hopefully, that will make things a little bit easier. And I'll talk a little louder as well. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so now I want to change my shared screen. And change my share to my transfer screen. Okay, so let's just pull that one down a little bit. So everyone see the Globus Connect, the Globus web app now? Okay, good. So this is the place you land, or the Globus web app that we're going to be using to do our file sharing. What I'm going to do is share some files from NeSI, from our endpoint, and share them to my share them so that I can download them to my laptop, personal laptop. So the place I'm going to start is with the NeSI DTN. You can find an endpoint just by typing it in. So I'll type in NeSI here to do a search, and there's the second one there. So connecting through the NeSI endpoint now. Okay. And as I mentioned, it defaults to your home directory. I'm going to share things from my no backup directory of the project that I'm in. I've already bookmarked that directory, so we'll move through there. So NeSI no backup, I'm in a project called NeSI, and I have a folder there called REANNZ test, and I'm going to share some of the data in that. I have a folder underneath that called NeSI Annual Review. I want to share that folder. Okay, so here's the folder here, the Annual Review folder, and it's got 3 files in it. When you're sharing, you share a folder rather than an individual file. So I'm going to share that NeSI Annual Review folder. You notice there's an icon here called Share. So I'll click on that. In order to share, I need to create a shared endpoint or a collection. So I'll do that now.
That one that got closed down on Grove.
There's my path. Annual reviews. I'm going to call this just a demo for the date today, which is the 11th. And this is a test. I'll put any keywords at this point, and I'll create that share. Okay, so now you can see the host path of my share, called the NeSI Reviews folder. I want to share that folder now. I've created it as a shared collection or endpoint. Here's some add permissions. Okay, so I'll share that with an individual user. Okay, so if that person already has a Globus account, I could pick it up here. And kind of search for Joe Bloggs, not there. Okay, so if he doesn't have an account, I can just use an email to contact the person about sharing. So Joe Bloggs at gmail.com, just pick up an alias, and I'll add that in. Okay, so now the actual email I'll send it to is just for test. Send that request to myself. And I'll say, you know, what I might say, here's a, and you'll note there that I'm just giving this person, Joe Bloggs, read permission. That email address, and I'll add that permission. So you can see Joe Bloggs now has been added to the permissions in my group. Joe will have been sent an email saying he's access. Stop the share and I'll do the share. Let's see if I can pick up an email address. Okay, so this is the email sent through to Joe Bloggs saying that I've shared this folder on a demo folder with him. And here's a URL for getting access to it. Okay. In fact, though, because I'd done an earlier demo, that link is not working right at the moment. But you get the idea that he would have, Joe would have been sent a link and get linked through to the through to that folder that I set up so that he can then download. One other thing to look in while I'm here is roles. At the moment, I'm the administrator of this group, of the share. If I wanted to, I could give someone else some rights in the shared group so that they could create someone manager rights so that they could add people to give them read or write access and other things as well. So I could delegate some of the management of the share if I wanted to. Let's just go back to my share that I'd set up. Okay, so now if I was going to do that transfer, just pull some stuff out of here the way. I'm going to share that with my laptop.
Brian.
Top here.
Brian, we'll see still your email. I think
you're not sharing the right screen.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me change my share over again. Thank you. So I'm back to sharing my screen again. Yep. Okay, so so I've got my files here. I'm sharing them with my laptop. In my laptop, I've can then do a transfer of these files and start a transfer. Grab the files and I can transfer them across into my laptop. And if we refresh the list there, we should see those files now have transferred through to my laptop. You can see two of them are transferred already. So that's how you can share a folder with an individual. If we wanted to share that same folder with a group, the first thing we need to do is create the group. So there's a group options here. I can create a new group. I'll call this group Demo Today. And I'm the administrator. I'll create the group and the group will be visible just to group members. Okay, so here's my Demo Today group. If we have a look at that group, I'm the administrator of the group. There are no members in the group. We'll just have a quick look at the settings. So under the group, I can set up policies. At the moment, the policy is set so that it's automatically someone can be added to the group There's subgroup options only available to me, and so on. The groups are visible only to the group members. Also worth noting, terms and conditions. So I could set up some terms and conditions that by clicking here, you agree with the terms of the share. Let's have a look at the members. There's no members at the moment. I can invite someone to join that group. Here's someone, I've got an email address. I can add a person. An invitee, put in an email address and send them an invite. They will get an invite then saying, I'll just stop here again and see if I share if I can pick up the right page here. Okay. So they'll get an email saying that I've invited them into a group and to click here to apply for membership. And then they can be, they click there and then the membership's approved and they become a member of that group. Okay. I'll go back and share my web screen again. So that group having been created then, and this person has been added as a member of that group, how do I share my directory with the group? So I'm back again on my annual reviews folder. If I want to share that with a group, here's my demo share that I've set up, okay? And sharing there, I can add permissions now. Instead of for a user, I can add a group. And I can select that group, which is my demo today group. And I've added permissions for that group to be part of the share. Why I'd want to use share via a group rather than an individual, if you're getting a number of people that you're wanting to share with, quite often it's easy just to set up a group and then add them to the group rather than adding individuals to a share. I'm hoping that makes sense now. I've whizzed through that fairly quickly, thinking in terms of timeframes. But really the main concepts are you can share any folder that you want inside Globus, share with an individual, or create a group and share that folder with a group, so that they have access to it and they are provided with the URL when you do share with them, so they can link through and they can download the files from that share. And that downloading is only available to them, either to that individual that you've invited or to people in that group. The last thing I wanted to talk about was configuring a Globus personal account. So let me just, rather than doing it all, I'll just talk you through the process. So why you'd want a personal endpoint, it may be that your institution doesn't have an endpoint for transferring, or it may be that you want to download files from, for instance, from NeSI to your personal laptop, or you want to upload from your laptop through the NeSI. So this is what I want to show you. So how to install, basically there's a link that you can go to install a personal endpoint. You can install a Windows version, a Linux or a Mac version. You download the application, you generate a software key, download and install the installation on your laptop. Once the installation is complete, then you add in that setup key that you created, and you're asked which folder on your laptop you want to make available for transferring to. On my folder, when I showed you that in my demo before, I transferred and I had set up a folder in my documents just for Globus transfer, and that's where I transferred files to and from. So I won't run through the installation, just to show you that's how it's fairly easy to install a personal endpoint. Where you may come into trouble is that if you have very strict firewall, and if you're at work where your laptop is, you may need to get your IT staff to open up a port in that firewall. The PowerPoint that I showed you with those set of links at the beginning gives some information around firewall setup. The last thing about the personal endpoint, if you want to share files from your personal endpoint rather than from a organizational endpoint, if you want to share files from your laptop to someone else, you're able to do that, but there's one thing that you need. You need to have something called a Globus Plus subscription. Let's just go back to my to the Globus web app. In my account here, see I'm Brian Flaherty, there's an option for Globus Plus. If I want to share between my laptop and another laptop, I have to have a Globus Plus account. There's some details about how to do that in a link that's on the links page. Basically, if you don't see this thing here that says your sponsor group is NeSI, you need to request access you need to request to become a Global Plus member, and it's just putting in a request and you'll be added in within a day or so, and then you can do that. So look, just a little bit of admin around having a Globus Plus account if you want to share from laptop to laptop. Okay, I know that's a very quick whiz through. That's all I wanted to cover in the kind of the demo. Are there things or questions that people have about the process that I've gone through today? Sharing this with an individual, creating a group, sharing with a group, and the just a quick whiz through on setting up a personal Connect server.
Could you just put back up the link for the Globus app and also the link for your presentation?
Sure. Okay. So these are the links here that had the all of the documentation, support documentation we talked about. That's the link for the Globus web app. The PowerPoint slides will be available, and the recording will be available after the at the end of our demo. Any questions?
Ryan, I just have a question in regards to the personal endpoint.
Sure.
If we're using a high capacity storage unit through the University of Otago, do we share through that? We don't need the personal endpoint, do we?
No, Otago has its endpoint, and that's connected up to Otago storage. So you're able to, if you have an account set up through with your IT staff, so that you have an account on the Otago endpoint, then you can transfer files through there, and you can set up a share to one of your directories through that.
So we're sharing to another university overseas. Will they have to set up a personal endpoint, or do we just link it to her email address?
They need an endpoint. The reason I'm hesitating is that if you want to transfer the files using grid FTP, so the high performance and high speed transfer, then they need to have an endpoint. So they need to set up a personal endpoint if they don't have an institutional one.
Okay, so if they haven't, no, I doubt I don't know. So if they don't have an account with Globus, or then they would have. Sorry, I'm not quite sure if I understood that right. You might need to explain that again.
Yeah, so let me. They will, if you want to transfer the files there to an overseas organisation, they will need to have an endpoint. If it's going to be transferred via the high-speed transfer. In the next version of the next release of the Globus Connect server, that Otago doesn't have an, I'm not sure, I have to check whether Otago has that as or not. There is an option for transferring just by HTTPS, just via over the web, via rather than via the high-speed grid FTP. They may be able to, you may be able to share with them, and they download those links via HTTPS. I can talk you through a little, maybe best if you want to flick me an email, and I can talk you through a little bit more about that offline.
Yeah. We're looking at, those are images and videos, so they are large data sets per participant. So looking at, probably 10,000 gigabyte at least per participant.
Okay, yes, so then you probably better not to just try and transfer that via HTTPS. It would take forever.
It would take forever.
Better to use the grid FTP performance transfer. In which case, yeah, they do need to set up an endpoint. They don't. They can set up a Globus account. They can. There's no cost to them. They can download and install the endpoint somewhere. And you can transfer through to that endpoint. But we can do that offline. I can send you some an outline of the steps that need to be taken by them. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Brian.
And just to there's my email at the end there if you want to make a note of that. Flaherty at NeSI.org.nz if you want to have a
Brian, we've got another question in the Zoom chat.
Okay.
I'd read it out, but there might be echo since we're both in the same room. If you could read it out.
I'm just trying to pick that up here.
Or I just muted you. So the question is, if an external user has a Globus account but doesn't have an active NeSI account, would they still be able to download data from a read-only Globus share on NeSI platforms?
So if someone has, so if someone doesn't have an NeSI account, but someone who does have an NeSI account has shared a directory with them, then they'll be given a link and they can download that. They don't need to have a NeSI account in order to get access. But the person who is sharing that data needs to have a NeSI account if the data is on NeSI, on a NeSI server.
Brian, just checking the login page, like the one you displayed earlier, transfer.nesi.org, and it says use your existing organizational login. Am I supposed to find Otago at New Zealand institutions under that? And log into NeSI Global's web app?
The New Zealand institutions at this point aren't on that list there.
All right.
So the best thing to do is to use the Globus, let me just stop sharing that one. I'm already logged in actually, so that I won't be able to show you that. But yeah, there's an option underneath that list, which is the one to use, which is the Globus one.
Also, this is a globusid.org login.
Yes, and if you haven't already got a Globus account, then that will step you through the process of setting up an account.
Good, good. Okay, cool. Thank you. And on the first slide, I might have missed that. You might have said that. There was a file limit. Is that a general file size limit, 20 gigabytes?
No, that first slide.
I think first and second slide, there's a few things. But if no is the answer, then it's cool, because some table. Was it here or next one? Yeah, this one.
No, that's on NeSI.
Oh, that's on NeSI itself.
Yeah,
yes.
So that's if you're accessing the NeSI file system. When you land on NeSI through Globus, you land in your home directory. That only has a 20 gig storage max in there, so that's why we recommend that you do your file transfer from the no backup directory rather than your home directory.
Yeah, you just gone completely silent, but I tried to read your lips, and I think I know what you said. And my last question would be, is there a physical copy of those files being created once you do the whole linking, like the endpoint creation?
So basically, what Globus is doing is giving someone permission to access that folder. So they can then transfer the files, so that another copy has been made where they transfer. But when you create that, when you share that folder, it's not a separate collection being created. It's not a separate files that are being created. It's those files in your directory that are being shared. Did you hear that? Hopefully.
Sorry, I was just muted by someone, so that's why I didn't. I said thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, again, if you do have any other questions, you're welcome to send me an email. I'll get in touch and we can talk through those. I think we're run a bit over time, so thank you for your patience today. I hope you found something there that was useful to get you started using Globus for transferring files and thinking about personal endpoints, and maybe even that your institution may want to think about, if you haven't already, setting up a Connect server, Globus Connect server for your institute.
Thank you very much.
Just before we go, could we just give one quick shout out to the important partners of this service? So REANNZ, the National Advanced Network Provider, is very key. Obviously NeSI, and then Globus as the tool being used as part of this national data transfer platform.
Thanks, Jenna, and you did tell me to say that beforehand, and it slipped my mind, so thank you for reminding me. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.